Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the... Dude, seriously, I just tried to do it again. I do not know why, like...
The Dude Seriously Podcast?
Yeah, it's the Dude Seriously Podcast. Welcome to... I'm your number one dude. With me today is my dude. But no, like, honestly, I genuinely, like... I think I can't think of a non-negative word to say for it, but it's like, I've like scarred the old podcast name into my head because I still, when I go into it without thinking about it, that is where my mind defaults. Now, to be fair to us, we actually did that podcast like near consistently every single week. So, like, you know, like, whereas this podcast is on, like, episode 14, that podcast, like, it only took us, like, a year to be at episode 50-something.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anywho, long story short is, this is the Column Shifters podcast. I am your main, well, I'm not your main, I'm a co-host, because, you know, you guys are equal in this. I couldn't do this without you, friends. Anywho, I'm your co-host, Juan Johnson, aka Afro, amateur race car driver / aspiring race car driver / whatever you want to call it. I do race car things, but I don't do the highest level race car things, and I usually don't get paid for it. Instead, I just find ways to make it not be financially crippling. Following me here today is my good friend, Mr. Hunter Reeve, Mr. Canada Boy, Mr. Whoop Whoop and the Popo Shwoop de Whoop.
What's up?
Yeah, say hi, Hunter.
Hi, Hunter.
So, today we are going to be talking about a fun little slew of things, but we're going to go ahead and kick things off with a conversation we were having pre-podcast. You know, we were squandering our sweet content on the open air, so now, Hunter, why don't you go ahead and tell me a little bit more about that opportunity that you are presented with that makes me hella jelly, because basically, on paper now, I'm going to spoil it already, you're about to potentially become more race car driver than I am.
Yes, I am. Apparently, hopefully, fingers crossed. So yeah, I'm involved with this an organization called Operation Motorsport. It's for ill and injured service members. I myself, I was medically discharged in 2017 from the Army.
Yeah, for your old man hip.
Yeah, my old man bones. And
I got old man bones.
I'm old. Yeah, so thanks for getting me lost in thought.
You're talking about Operation
Motorsport. Thank
yes.
you. So the goal is, what Operation Motorsport is that it takes recently like medically separated veteran, gives them experience in motorsport, puts them in a team environment again, which is, you know, something people in the military know so well. It's a great experience because it gets you with like-minded people that have been in the same situation as you, and you're around race cars, which is awesome. Should we wait for the puppy?
Goblin Nugget. Yeah, looking at you. You're interrupting a very important podcast. I love you to death.
This
Big
is
Bon.
peak production quality.
Big Bon, come here. Come here with your corn. Bring me your corn. Thank you. This is her corn. She absolutely demolished it. Please make less noise with it. And this is you know, again, we're going pro here. So for those of you guys who are listening to the podcast, you won't see this. This is the dog making those god-awful goblin sounds. She's small. She's adorable. And, no, she's not savagely killing anything. That's just how she plays because she's a little defective. I love her, though. That's why we didn't mail her back. It's just extra personality. Okay, be free. Guys, what did I say about the noise? I'm going to close the door. No, I don't want your corn. Anywho, continue talking about your Operation Motorsports thing. I think this distraction is good now.
So should we just edit that one out and just?
Nope, we're keeping it.
Okay,
Let's roll with it.
Fair enough. That's right on. Okay.
That's what they call the human aspect.
Yes, something like that. Anyway, So something being added to Operation Motorsport is the ability to, well, the goal is to get guys driving as well in races. Obviously, it's not like, we're going to get thrown straight into an IMSA race or something like that. But the goal is I don't know if anybody's ever heard of it. If you have not, take a look at. There's a race every year on Remembrance Day at Anglesey Circuit, Wales, and it's, like I said, it's on Remembrance Day in Wales, and it's a 12-hour race. There's a ceremony for Remembrance Day, and it's just a way for veterans and family members, stuff like that, to people like that. I'm distracted by your dog, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not watching, I'm just keep hearing dog noises.
It's because she's sitting here and smacking me with the cord. She's just repeatedly hitting me with it.
Funny doggy. Anyway, so this past fall they ran a iRacing series, and I won the class championship. So I am in the hot seat to go do some real racing here.
So, by the way, I didn't even ask this when we were talking in person. What's the car? Is it the Audi something or other?
So I think it's going to be a Global MX-5, the new one.
Oh, okay.
And then what I'll be racing here to get my license will be, I think, an NC Miata, if I remember correctly.
Guys, come on now. You've never bugged me during a podcast before. Why today? Genuinely, we've been pretty, pupper free. This is a rare occurrence. Normally, they only want to play at 10 p.m. Anywho, we're going to take advantage of this little. Go for it. But yeah, but that's freaking awesome, though, because nothing sharpens your skills more than the MX-5, because there's nothing about the car that isn't improved by driver mod purely in and of itself. There's nothing you can lean on in that car. Either you drive it well and it's fast, or if you don't drive it well, it's going to be slow. Short and simple. It was really funny when I talked to my bonus dad, or my bonus stepdad. He used to be in the in Spec Miata and the SCCA.
Uh-huh.
And he was telling me basically when I was originally when I started my aspirations to do more race car stuff, I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna start in in Club God, if I could talk straight. Start in Spec Miata because it's cheap and easy to get into and a bunch of other stuff. And he's like, yeah, I wouldn't do that because it's cutthroat and savage as hell. It's true.
Serious like that, it's bad.
When none of the cars are really all that much better than the other one, you have to fight tooth and nail for everything you take.
Yeah.
So definitely not a place. It's nice to start in places when you can actually get some breathing room from time to time without being in dead last. Because that's the other thing too, is with a lot of the spec racing like that and the lower powered cars that are really driver mod focused, it's not like you can just hang, unless you were dead last by a stupid margin, you are always going to be racing someone else. Those packs, they do cluster, definitely, but there's usually 2 to 3 clusters in those races with 1 to 2 cars in the back because they're broken. So they're struggle bussing around the track or trying to do whatever they can. Or they spun out in the first lap and then they're trying to catch up, but it's just you're never safe from somebody dogging you and trying to blow past you. And again, it's not like any of these people are bad people or anything. It's it's racing.
That's just the way it is, boy.
So that being said, I do not. Are you going to be racing in a Spec Miata series?
Yeah, there's one here at my local track, actually.
Yeah. So have fun with that, friend.
I know. Hopefully, it starts happening 2021, and yeah.
That reminds me of one of my favorite memes that has come out of so I joined and I've already mentioned this a bunch of times, but I'm a part of a lot of the Grid Life groups on Facebook, and when they went to online racing because of, sorry, I popped out of the main chat because it's in here somewhere, I wish I remembered where it was off the top of my head. But anyway, so it was, God, I wish I could freaking find it, because I know that I think I even downloaded it, like, just the other day, and I have no idea what I did with it. Like, not even in the slightest. I'm mad at myself now. Oh, I'm going to keep looking for it while we talk, and when I find it, it's going to be great. Do I still have you?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this back to the way that it was. There you go. And I promise you guys, when I find this picture, it's worth it. It's very much worth it. But for now, I have to find it. So, anywho, yeah, continue though with So, do you have any idea when any of this stuff is going to actually, like, happen into next season? I forget how much of this is, like, up in the air / like, still waiting.
It's like 50-50. Well, I'm going to say 50-50. I think it's a pretty solid deal. It's just getting the money for it through the charity and then through sponsorship as well. Just to be upfront and honest, I have to run 3 races here after I get some track time, obviously. And each race for me is $850 when all said and done. Operation Motorsport is being the organization I'm a part of. They'll pay for part of that, I believe, and then hopefully maybe work out some kind of sponsorship deal. If not, because 2020 has been hard on everybody. So unfortunately, due to everything, he can't travel. So Operation Motorsports would go to IMSA races or SRO races for fundraising, but couldn't really do that this year. So, yeah.
Either way, though, it's still not too. At least, like, that's not too terrible, all things considered.
No. Yeah, all things considered, it's not impossible.
Well, yeah, yes, but I mean, obviously, you've got. I don't even know what your obligations are, but like, technically, if I dropped everything else I was doing racing wise, like, dude, I'm looking to put $10,000 into next season as it stands right now with what I'm doing. So, then again, now I'm sitting here and I'm showing my privilege. Not that I have that much of a privilege, but I do acknowledge the fact that not everyone. What'd you say?
How about you check that privilege?
Yeah, bro, I'm gonna check it at the door. I'm gonna I'm gonna go to the front door. I'm gonna be like, hey, can you hold all of this privilege for me? Like, there's so much. I just, I can't fit this in the door. Can I get like a wide load sign for my privilege? This is a girthy. This is the girthiest privilege that I have the privilege of girthing in the... Yep, lost my whole train of thought there. You get the gist. Privilege. Although, technically it's earned and all the other stuff. Not like Matt Farah earned, as in, like, my mom was a single mom and we were dirt broke. I actually did earn it. But, that's a whole different story. We're not going to compare privilege here, because that's a dangerous game.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm sure some of you guys are already mad at me now the instant I said $10,000 on a racing season.
That's just
racing's expensive, though, dude.
Yes, very.
Because, like, I mean, I'm not, like, going out and partying and, like, eating out all... those are terrible examples, because those are actually very cheap things to do. But, like, I mean... To put things in perspective, guys, I whine and moan when I have to spend $20 on a case of Red Bull because I'm like, oh, my race car money. Oh. That's so much race car money in liquid form, and not even the good liquid form.
No.
So yeah, but anyway, but still, it's gonna be really. I really hope that like that gets rolling for you, because. I'll be there rooting for you. Root-tootin'. So, what's the series that you... Like, so after you do these races, what is the actual series you'd be racing in? If I missed that when you were first talking, I apologize. I was busy. It won't
be a series. It'll be... the goal is to run the Race of Remembrance.
That's right. Yeah, the Race of Remembrance. So, yeah, that's my bad. But either way, those... I mean, honestly, that's where it started. I mean, look at me. I mean, I did one Grid Life event next year. Now, luckily, the way Grid Life is structured, they don't actually have... and if I'm wrong about this, it's because I really didn't pay attention. But like they don't have like a championship or anything. It's just events. You win an event, and there are tons of racing series that are like that, where there's not like an overall points total. It's just a bunch of races, and you either win or you lose. It all depends on what the sanctioning body's overall goals are, and usually in the less contingencyed motorsports, like in the sports where you don't make any money or any product, those are the ones where you especially don't see championships as much. Championships are like your not big money makers, but your money making races a lot of the times.
It is, yeah, it is. I don't know if it'll ever lead to anything beyond that. That'd be pretty tight, but yeah, it's just one of those things that'll take time, and we'll see if it'll move on from just the one race. Like I said, I'll have a race license. I can't remember exactly what license I'll have, but
the coolest one.
The very coolest one.
You'll have a racing license that just literally says the illest.
I hope I could. I wish I could. What class is illest class? Got it. Thanks.
Yeah, dude, this guy's the illest. Honestly, that would be the funnest thing about starting. And I apologize if it really seems like I'm not paying attention, you guys. It's driving me crazy that I don't remember where I found this meme. But I literally found it and said, oh boy, I better save this because I loved this meme. And then I apparently saved it somewhere I can't find it. Which is the worst. This is just going to drive me insane. Anywho. But yeah, so either way, on my side of things, I actually did. So I actually recently, I won't say it out loud at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, my strategy is a little irresponsible, but I don't care. But I actually recently figured out that I might be able to dig up enough money for a hardtop this year, because, basically, so I'm in a real, like, rock and hard place kind of situation, because basically the issue I'm running into is that, man, I've just repeated myself like 3 times in various different forms there. That's how I'm not paying enough attention. All right, I'm going to wait on finding this meme. If I ever do find it, I promise it'll be hilarious and worth it. But that being said, I realized that, because I want to do a harness bar and I want to do a racing seat. My friend, who's actually like a skilled welder, like as in it was his job and he actually like lays down dime stacks for a living, he's coming back to St. Louis, and I had an agreement with him a while back that I was going to, pay him, and he was going to make me a weld-in roll bar, because at the end of the day, this car, like, I'm committed to making it a racy thing. I don't need, reversibility or anything. And likewise, Weldon is, for all intents and purposes, like, bolt-in roll bars are perfectly fine. They can be great structural components, but you do get more out of a Weldon in terms of, structure and a bunch of other stuff, which then you can get into some people who are subjective about different things, because then you got whatever. But the biggest thing is I also want to go ahead and make something that's technically kind of modular, in a sense that it will be the back half of a cage, in preparation for someday when I actually do go full cage, because then I'll only have to weld in like the diags that go to the front of the car, as well as the door bars and stuff. So that's where it comes into, is it's going to be a bit of a hybrid, in that it's going to be a rear cage. And so long story short though is that in order to fabricate one, we need to know how tall it can be, and in order to do that, I have to have the hard top. And you'd be like, well, then just don't get the roll bar. Get the bolt-in roll bar that has known fitment. Well, it's like, okay, but then I also wanted to, I want to do a custom racing seat. I wanted, custom rotors. None of them are custom. Unless you're like F1, then everything's custom. But, a seat, and then I actually, because the biggest thing is when you're designing your seat rails, because the seat I want to buy, the manufacturer doesn't make seat rails for the S2000, so I have to custom make it. And basically, I need to know how high to put the seat. How high can I put it and still fit in the car with my helmet on? So because of that, it's like everything comes back to that. While the hardtop does the least for me on track, it does the most for me in terms of fabricating the stuff that I do need. So womp womp there. So now that's bumped up on my list of upgrades, because definitely the S2000 seats are great, but you definitely feel it when you go into left-hand turns. You do brace yourself pretty hard with your left leg. Luckily, when you go into right-hand turns, your thigh is already up against the transmission tunnel, so you don't go anywhere. It's that left one. Like, it's kind of a really awkward... Like, the S2000 is really comfortable for me to sit in, but when you actually look at it, like, aesthetically, it's like you have this space between your left leg, but then your right leg is, like, right on there, basically.
I always remember that about the S2000. It's just kind of weird the way that's situated.
Yeah, and the passenger compartment is terrible. Like, there's, like, a big bulge where the exhaust manifold is in the passenger section. So, like, you know, as a passenger, your left leg doesn't need to do much, so it's fine that you, like, put your feet together, but you can't spread your legs the same way the driver can in the S2000. Like, it's just one of those cars where, because the car itself is so approachable and down to earth, people don't talk about, like, the weird quirks it has nearly as much, whereas, like, then you have people where they're like, oh, the Viper, your feet are sideways, and, which is true. It is actually pretty terrible compared. The S2000 is better by comparison, but there are definitely some weird things. Man, I unfocused my camera by moving too much. Bad camera. No, don't focus on my hand. Focus on my face. Oh, well, it'll figure it out someday. Hey, there you go, I figured it out. But yeah, so anyway, long story short is that hardtop went back up on the list because I need it in order, because that's the other thing too, is that, so now we get into the fun news that I didn't tell you in person, because I was like, I want to talk about it in the podcast, which is that, so our client, because by the way, Hunter also is part of my little web business that I made. He's going to be helping with some projects. One of our clients owns a tuning shop / like exotic repair shop here in St. Louis, and he's actually, so basically for any work that I do, we've also kind of worked out a loose deal that we can translate some of that money into services. So, like, basically, probably for this first website I'm going to do for him, we're probably going to convert that into a corner balance, because my car needs to be corner balanced for next season, so that'll be awesome. And then the other thing, too, is I'm probably going to convert some of that money that I would make into time in his shop. So, basically, he has like a TIG welder and a MIG welder and a plasma torch. And then I haven't talked to him about it yet. I'm going to kind of ease into this thing because I don't want to be, too demanding from the get-go until we have more of a rapport. But basically my end goal is I'm potentially going to, like, if this relationship ends up being really positive and moving forward pretty well, then I would love to potentially even rent some shop space from him in order to start storing projects and doing projects. And the other thing, too, is one thing I'm partially considering is if I stay where I'm at for another year, like, longer than I thought I was going to, then I may even go as far as to be like, hey, if I pay for a lift and install, will you let me put a lift in the second half of your shop, and then you can use it when I'm not around for your business, and that consider that my rent for it. But then in turn, I have a shop space with a lift and everything that's 6 minutes from my house. So... yeah, so this is all, like, obviously this is all up in the air and all theory things in my head, but he's been super open to the idea of me, like, using his things in exchange for services so he can keep costs low. So, by the way, Hunter, you'll still get your money. Any work you do is still money stuff. I already talked to him about that.
I was going to say.
No, this is just for whenever I do work on stuff, and, so for all intents and purposes, he's looking at it as a 50% discount to what he was already going to be paying, because my portion of the work will be more goods and services that I need. So long story short is that I'm going to try and get more and more into the fabrication game myself, which it's too bad that you don't hang out in Slack as much, because we're actually having a really cool conversation about it. So there's a company, that they're not a sponsor or anything. I just know of them, and they're really popular in the time attack circuits, called 9 Lives Racing. And they're one of the few companies out there that actually makes a wing and actually, like, releases the data on their wing as to, like, this is how much downforce you make at this speed with this angle of attack, and, like, they actually mathematically prove how their wings work.
Yeah. I've seen these guys.
Yeah, and so I found out today So we've run into an issue where if I get the hardtop I want to get, which is like the spoon style hardtop, but this one's from Shine Automotive because they make knockoff stuff and it's infinitely cheaper. Like I think the spoon hardtop is like $5,000 to $6,000, whereas theirs is like $2,000. So, and I've, you could be like, but I bought their fenders and their over fenders, and like you get more than you paid for. You don't get exact perfect quality, but you get way more than what you paid for, in my personal opinion. Like, I mean, everyone thinks my car looks fantastic. I know where the flaws are, but that being said, the fact that everyone thinks my car looks fantastic is, again, a testament to them. So, long story short is that I want to go ahead and look into getting their hardtop, but the downside is that it has a little duckbill that comes off the back of the car, which means you can't fit center mount wings, which is the strongest part of the trunk. And if you do the edge mount wings, with any wing that's worth putting on the car, you can be making upwards of 200 to 300 pounds of downforce at 100 miles an hour, depending on the angle of attack and a bunch of other factors. And, you think about, if I grab my hands around the lip of my trunk, I can get it to flex. Just like, it's not like flimsy flex, but you can feel that it's not the strongest. So imagine 200 pounds of force twisting, bending back, twisting, like basically any Time Attack S2000 you see that has a trunk mounted wing that is mounted to the edges of the trunk, that section starts to pull up. And like, for a lot of guys, they don't have any issues with it long term, but one of the guys that I follow on YouTube all the time, Jackie Ding, back when he had an S2000, he actually did have a wing failure. Like, I think he'd had the wing on there for like 2 or 3 years. So again, it's a distance out, but his wing catastrophically failed at a Time Attack event. Like, literally just everything explode. Like, it didn't actually explode. The trunk tore, which allowed the stands to twist, which allowed the wing to twist, which then made everything go poof. So, long story short is that at the end of the day, it is my main goal not to mount a wing to the edges of the trunk. And because of that, that means that my next option is a chassis mount wing. And not in a ricey way, like genuinely mounting it to the chassis for a reason, because the trunk, unless you can mount it dead in the middle and reinforce it that way, it doesn't work. And you'll see some people like who run the spoon top, they've actually cut like a clearance hole for their wing in the top, so that way, they can do so. But then when you start doing stuff like that, you just make access to the rear of the car harder and harder. When you have a roll when you do like the soft top delete and everything, you actually get straight access to the rear strut towers from in the driver compartment, but it's uncomfortable as hell. And then throw in a cage in there and you're going through like a jungle gym to like, which again is doable, but I aim to try to make the car as easy to service and make changes to as possible. So, I'd like to keep that trunk access, which means that's another plus side of doing the chassis mount wing, is that I can leave the spoon style hardtop, as it is without cutting holes in it and doing stuff. The wing is out of the way from the trunk, so you can just pop the, I'm going to work on like a little hinge system. It's been done before, but hinge the duckbill part, and then you just pop open the trunk like you usually do, and boom, you have access. So long story short, that was a really long way of me saying Nine Lives Racing makes a fantastic wing, but they don't make a chassis mounted wing for the S2000. But I found out they actually do a Build-A-Bear workshop thing for their wings. So you can actually buy just the blade, or you can buy the blade and the end plates, or you can buy the blade with the mounts on the blade, but then not the actual chassis mounts themselves. So basically what I'm going to probably end up doing this winter is, like, I might not pull the trigger on it just because of cost, but we'll see, because, like I said, it all depends on how some of my ideas here pan out. But the goal is to actually buy their wing, because that's the part that's actually, like, requires precision machining and actual skill and a wind tunnel and actual, software. And then I'm going to design my own chassis mounts, because that is a two-dimensional piece. You make it out of two-dimensional, half-inch thick aluminum or steel. I need to do some materials education and probably run some simulations through Fusion 360. But basically, you know, as long as you get the right materials and stuff, like, it's flat. It's a flat piece. It's super easy to design. You can design it on a sheet of paper. So those are going to be some of my big goals for this winter, is to try and make the thing I want to happen, to pay for a hardtop. And then the one downside about when you buy from like these boutique builders is that it's going to be like 2 or 3 months before I get my hardtop. So it'll be like just in time for the season when I can get all these measurements and everything done. But, you know, the fingers crossed that between some of the connections I've made, I'll be able to essentially half design a wing for my car that works with my setup for what I want to do. So that was a very, very long story for talking about the stuff that I'm going to be working on. And then I'm going to try and do 3 Grid Life events next year. And I'm going to try and suck less. That's my goal. So, that being said, let's see, how deep are we in? Hey, look at that, we're only 30 minutes in. We actually didn't talk about side things for that long, although I like the side things now. By the way, you're still muted if you didn't notice.
No, I just noticed. Anyway.
But yeah, so, anyway, we're both going to be doing race car stuff, so I'm proud of you, Hunter. Go do race car stuff.
Thanks.
And hopefully the border opens up, and then you can join my race team, and we can do race car stuff.
Yes, we could go racing together. We can do many glorious racing things.
Yeah, all the glorious racing things. And you can be on my YouTube channel, and I can be like, yo, smash that like button, and, you know,
smash that like button.
Smash it. And here's my homie Hunter Boo, and all that other fun stuff that the YouTubers do.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Buy our merch. We have merch coming.
Yeah, we have merch from Merchworks.
Yeah,
oh my God, what's your? I always forget what your boss's name is. I'm terrible about that. You've told me a million times and I still forget. Josh, yeah. Tell Josh you need Merchworks.
I think that's probably been taken.
Merchworks? I don't know. Let's find out. Hold on.
Find out, huh?
Hold on. I'm going to GoDaddy right now. We're gonna look up Merchworks with the E instead of the A instead of the O.
Yep.
Merchworks.com is taken, but let's see if .ca is taken. .ca is available technically, and you are a Canadian company.
Ooh, somebody's gonna listen to this and buy it.
I'm sorry, I just ruined his chance to have Merchworks. Actually, I'm now kind of curious to see. So Merchworks.com. Let's see if it actually is in use, or if it's just being porch pirated. What? They don't even have a menu. This is weird. The website's just like a bunch of words and pictures, and it's kind of organized in the shape of a website, but there's no links to anything or contact information. It's like, oh, okay, there we go. The links are the pictures, but not this one. So they're a holding company of vertically aligned brands and businesses consisting of Fresh Markets, Co-Works, Merchworks Digital, and Bands on a Budget. Interesting. And the Merchworks website doesn't load. Alright then. Yeah, so anywho, that's a fun little tangent-y bit. So, cool. That being said, let's see what we've got here going today. So, today we're going to talk about, this car is in a lot of contention for a lot of folks because if you either love Hennessey or you hate him, most people hate him a little bit or a lot of it because a lot of people think he's a quote-unquote con man. I still, personally, do believe that I haven't seen enough substantiated evidence for me to vehemently hate the man yet. I have seen enough unsubstantiated evidence to definitely be wary of the man and not want to give him my money. But that being said, I can definitely appreciate what they've accomplished with the Hennessey Venom F5, which was officially unveiled in its full-ish form recently, and we've got Motor Trend and Top Gear and a few other people have covered it. So this thing is, it's an American-made supercar that makes apparently 1,800 horsepower and weighs not a lot. Like, it's like the statistics are kind of silly. Like, it weighs, or like, it was like the horsepower per, or no, it was the brake horsepower per weight is better than that of a Bugatti Chiron, and it's because it weighs very little. I'm trying to see if I can actually find that proper weight in this article, which I should have read this article better ahead of time in order to find. Yeah, okay, so it weighs 2,900 pounds dry, which, God, I fucking hate when people do that. That is the most fucking worthless, like, weight scale in the world. Screw every car company that does dry weight. Flat out.
It's $29.98, so might as well say $3,000.
Yeah, well, and even that, well, see, the thing is like, the dry weight means no fluids. That's not a real world number. You can't run the car with no coolant, no engine oil, no, Freon, no other thing. Like, that's just not a useful number. You need to have, and so, you have to account for fluids. So you've got, maybe 2 gallons of coolant, so that's something like 30 pounds. Then you've got, I don't know, it's a V8, so let's say that it takes like 6 quarts of oil. 6 quarts of oil, is roughly, so that's another like 15 pounds. So it weighs like 60 pounds. I know my math is terrible. I'm rounding up all over the place. But let's say it's 60 pounds heavier than this. So why couldn't they just fucking say 2,060 pounds or 3,060 pounds? It's
because it wouldn't be good as 2.
Yeah, it's insane. So I'm going to say that this car weighs 3,060 pounds, which nonetheless, it still has an absolute, which now I say it has as if it exists. So a lot of, for those of you guys who aren't aware of the controversy behind Hennessey and the whole him being a con man thing, he has had numerous reports of people stating that they did not receive what they paid for, they waited months to receive their car, and with little updates in between. There have been reports of them scalping parts off of other customers' cars to finish projects that they've been working on. They regularly put products up for sale that literally can't even exist yet. Like, you can order a Dodge Ram TRX 6-wheeler from them that makes 1,000 horsepower. You can. Now, that doesn't mean they've not made a single one, because you can't get a TRX yet, even as a manufacturing sample. Because even if they had a manufacturing sample, they can't sell that. They can only sell actual cars once they start making them. So it's just like, now to be fair, at least you can give them the pat on the back in that they have made Hellcats that make 1,000 horsepower. So there's nothing stopping them from making this Hellcat make 1,000 horsepower. But again, it's like just promising things that they don't make already. So that being said, this F5 is another one of those skeptical things where it's like, they say they're going to only make 24 of them, and obviously they're going to be made to order, which means that you're dropping, I think this thing is going to be $800,000 or something like that. No, it's going to be in the millions, but not millions plural. I think it's like 1 point something million. Let's see. Hold on. Let's find this. Million. 2.1 million. Oh, which the original price was 1.6 million. So get bent if you originally pre-ordered one of these from the get-go. You now have to pay an extra $500,000 in order to get. Which, to be fair, if you could afford that, then you can afford this up step. Although that is a hurtful thing to say, because at the end of the day, I'm sure that there's at least one billionaire out there who genuinely went, well, dude, I had that $500,000 was gonna buy my next yacht. So I'm sorry, I can't buy this car anymore. The yacht's more important. So to you, Mr. Billionaire, I feel for you. I hate it when people mark up stuff that I was gonna buy.
That's gotta be awful.
Dude, I feel really bad for them. I really do.
You know what? I'm not even gonna start about it. Not even gonna.
So anyway, long story short is you're looking at a car that makes it revs to 8,000 RPM, makes 1,800 horsepower and 1,200 foot-pounds of torque. Again, rounding up and down so I don't have to say specific numbers. And just power to weight wise, I mean, obviously that's just absolutely bonkers. I mean, hold on, let's get the, because nobody states the ratio, so I'm going to go ahead and do the math for it myself. So, so when you're looking at 1800, oops, sorry, I did that wrong. This is 1800. Yeah, they literally has a power to weight ratio of 1.6. So, I mean, to put that in perspective, a normal, like, a 10 to 1 ratio is insane. So, or not insane, is fast. So, I'm throwing around bad numbers. I'm sorry. This is what happens when I don't get enough sleep. Well, I mean, you can look at the numbers yourself. I mean, a 3,000 pound, my S2000 is 2,800 pounds. Let's call it 3,000 pounds. Well, then I also still weigh the same weight when I get in this car until I get turned into a liquid. Then I might change weights. But But that being said, it's like my car makes 240 horsepower. This literally makes, like, hold on. This is why I used to be so good at math in high school and can't do it anymore. This has got 75 times the horsepower. No, that's not right, is it? Is that really? 1,800 divided by... No, that's why. I did 24 instead of 240. 7.5 times the horsepower.
Damn.
With roughly a very similar weight. Like, that is a... I mean, heck, you even look at... The Dodge Viper is a similar... It's a little heavier. I think the Dodge Viper is like 3,300 pounds or something like that. And that only made 700 horsepower. So, yeah, either way, it's a very interesting... it's a very interesting engineering piece. And, I mean, I hope it ends up being legit, because it's a cool car. But at the end of the day, like I said, and then some other fun things to toss in that are really cool about this thing is, it's not cool if you crash it. It's really cool in concept. The entire rear of the car, like with all the vents and everything, that is all one piece of carbon fiber that is milled.
Wow.
So literally, when you take the back off, all of that comes out as one piece. It's like they paint over some spots, they leave other spots black, but it is one piece. Same thing with the entire front clamshell. Like, literally, if you look at the front of this car, that little line you see in the fender, everything past that going to the front of the car is one piece that comes off, like a Lotus Elise. And it was all because they wanted to reduce excessive drag. Because you'll see it in land speed cars and in the 1 mile, like when they do the 1 mile drag races, you'll see people literally put tape on like their trunk lines and their bumper lines and everything, just everything to smooth the car as much as possible. And so that's literally what they did, is they just deleted the lines that you would normally have all together, and instead you actually have this one giant clamshell on the front and this one giant clamshell on the back, and then this giant bumper piece. So again, don't crash your F5, because you will be paying for that entire section of your car.
Yeah.
Like, because there's no because it's carbon fiber, which, I guess you can patch job it with Bondo and other things if you want to do it ghetto, but let's face it, you're not doing that on a $2.1 million car. You're getting it fixed properly. And I can only imagine what a complex piece of carbon fiber like that. Because, I mean, yeah, you look at, like, an undercover tray for a Ferrari can be, like, 18 grand. And that's a big flat piece. That's just one solid thing. But, like I said, from an engineering standpoint, it is an exercise in insanity. So, anyway, I like it from an engineering standpoint. If you look at it in a vacuum outside of the man and the company that makes it, it's great. But if you look at it outside of said vacuum, basically his entire company screams it's a money laundering scheme, and he probably sells drugs or something. Yeah. But, hey, the drugs fund this. Or no, it's the other way around. This funds the drugs, but, you get the picture. Yeah. It's a great relationship between this car and drugs. Also, I realized I could have been showing you guys this the whole time, but instead I was talking about it in a vacuum, because there's a video component to this. So here, I'm going to skim through just again. You can see that whole clam piece that I was talking about, and then this whole back bumper section is all one piece. Like I was saying, it's got Lambo doors because, of course, if you have the car of a billionaire, you have to have the doors of a billionaire, and the doors of a billionaire are Lambo/McLaren doors. They're a little more. They're actually McLaren. They're butterfly doors. Let's be fair. They are not proper scissor doors like a Lambo. So, by the way, if you want Lambo doors, you're gonna be out of luck, buddy. You're gonna have those piddly McLaren doors. So,
for people.
I know that I talk way too much, and I usually end up dominating things, but I'm going to talk about this one because this man is actually, these are two of my idols. One of them, unless, I'm going to get to the point. So, any of you guys who are in the internet circles and in the internet YouTube circles are aware of a little guy named Ken Block and aware of a little guy named Rob Dahm. You may not be aware of the Rob Dahm guy, but if you don't know who Ken Block is, you've probably been under like a really, really nice rock with great Wi-Fi, but like a Chinese internet filter. So, anywho, getting back to it, many moons ago, a young little boy named Rob Dahm, at the ripe age of like late 20s, early 30s, very young boy, saw the Hoonicorn and just basically was like, I want that. And he went on a quest and started what, like I said, for most of you guys who know who he is, or you may even be aware of the car and maybe not the person, but he started the quest to build a 4-rotor RX-7 with a custom chassis. So, like, this thing is the cab of, and I realize it's weird to say the cab of a car because cars are unibody, but I mean literally it's the outside shell, not even the floor. The floor's been cut out and it's just the outside shell, and then the rear quarter panels and the rear trunk and stuff of an RX-7 with a tube frame front end that has been extended. I think it's like 6 inches or something like that. Like, the front end of this thing is really Viper-esque because the nose has been pulled out so much more than a normal RX-7. And this thing has a 4-rotor in it with a turbo big enough to stick your head in, and I'm not even exaggerating in that, genuinely big enough to stick your head in. And the thing makes 1,240 horsepower out of a rotary, which is just bonkers. And to sweeten the pot with that, it is a all-wheel drive RX-7. So he actually took the Ateza system out of a R32 GTR, I believe, and beefed up some things and replaced some things in order to make this RX-7 4-wheel drive. And the whole, the entire chassis and everything about this, because it has inboard suspension. It's actually really fun because when I was watching the video of the, which I just realized I never even said. So the video is a race between this RX-7 and the Hoonicorn because Hoonigan has been doing this Hoonicorn versus the world stuff, where they've been bringing tons of the coolest cars from around the world to race against the Hoonicorn, in honor of the fact that that's what people do in Forza. Because when the Hoonicorn came out in Forza, people started driving it and they were like, hey, when you turn off drift mode on this thing, it's actually stupid fast. Yeah. And they realized that, like, without mods, the Hoonicorn is, like, the fastest car in a drag race in Forza, like, flat out. And so they decided to test that in real life, basically. So coming back to it, though, like I said, young boy Rob Dahm looked at the Hoonicorn and he fell in love with the way that it was built. And he actually, like, from just looking at photos of the Hoonicorn on the internet, actually started to work on reverse engineering its suspension geometry and then applied it to his RX-7. So it's got inboard suspension. It's just got so much crazy stuff going on, and I have been a absolute fangirl of this build ever since I first learned about it like 2 or 3 years ago. And this thing has gone from being, a pipe dream to it is a functional vehicle, albeit doesn't function perfectly, but it's been amazing watching him make that journey. And if you haven't watched the video of the RX-7 versus the Hoonicorn, go watch it. No, he does not win, and yes, some silliness does happen. A hood flies off, a fender falls apart, but The scary thing is that genuinely his RX-7 is the car that has come the closest to actually beating the Unicorn in a race. And they even, during one of their runs, they gave Dahm the hit. For those of you guys who aren't drag racing aficionados, that means that Rob got to decide when they go versus it being like a third party telling them when to go. And when he got the hit, he managed to jump on it a little bit before Ken did. And from that little jump ahead he did, he actually technically, like, he didn't actually beat the Unicorn because the Unicorn started like a full, however many milliseconds after it. But the fact that it even when they did race with the with a Christmas tree or a person doing it, basically, the fact that it was only within like 2 or 3 car lengths of the Unicorn is more than like any other car has been able to like tout up. So altogether, the whole thing has just been awesome to watch, and I'm excited about it. And, like I said, I mean, I don't know the guy at all in person, but I would love to meet him because this is, like, I mean, he is someone to aspire to be. I don't know whether or not his finances and stuff tell the same story, but in terms of accomplishment, he's what a lot of us, garage builders aspire to accomplish, and that's to build something crazy out of almost nothing. So, like I said, if you haven't had a chance to go watch it, it's really freaking cool. Go follow his content, or at least watch the Hoonigan video about the race between the two, because it's just amazing. And like I said, the car wasn't even, it literally had not been raced yet. Like, they had run into issue after issue. The car finally ran, and they just showed up with it. So, genuinely, I think with like 2 or 3 more drag days to tweak and fine-tune stuff, that it would have actually given the Unicorn a proper run for its money. But schedules being as schedules do, the car just they didn't have the time to really give it everything that it needed, and they wanted to do it because, it was for clout and for fun, and to meet, his idol, which is Ken Block, who is also an amazingly awesome driver.
Yeah.
So anywho, I'm done fangasming over that. Did you get to watch any of that, Hunter?
I watched a little bit of it.
Yeah.
I'm not a very good car person anymore.
Oh, that's fair enough. Are you just a race car boy now? Just a race car person?
Yeah, kinda, man. I mean, I don't know if it's an age thing or what. I admire what they did. It's cool, but
it honestly, it is a race car thing to an extent. Like, it's a race car thing. You wouldn't get it. But no, like, I've gotten to a weird point too. Like, I've been kind of joking about it, but genuinely, I have lost a lot of my initial interest in doing like street stuff. Like, I haven't gone on a cruise in a year. Like, I haven't just taken my car out for fun in a while. Now, to be fair, it's because I'd take my car out every other weekend and race it doing autocross or track days or whatever. But it's like, when you get into racing stuff, it's harder to be into the stuff that's both unattainable and also not necessarily useful to, what racing you can attain. Like, honestly, right now, I'm getting this, like, I still like them from a technical aspect, because I look at it from a standpoint of I want to steal what modern cars are doing and put it on cars that I can afford to make them go faster. But I'm starting to get it a little bit. Like, it's that whole thing, like how like F1 drivers will drive like the Mercedes AMG 1 and then be like, no, it's a good car. Yeah,
it's cool.
It's cool. And but it's just because, like, when your levels have been set at a higher, again, it's like when your expectations have been set a certain way, it does change how you look at some stuff. That being said, like I said, I don't think I'll ever get tired of like the engineering behind cars, but again, that's because I'm inherently less of a racing driver and more of somebody who likes the technical challenge of making cars go fast. And since I can't build a robot that'll drive as good as a human being, I am that robot. Which, like I said, I mean, like, that's my end dream is, like, obviously I'm never going to stop driving for fun, but my dream goal would be to actually end up having a team where somebody else drives and I can work on engineering stuff and being, a test driver and things like that. But, like, I don't have the raw driving talent yet. I can build a little bit of it, but there's that one part of me that I don't think I have that it factor. And a lot of it comes from the fact that, like, my love of cars came really, really late. So I started way behind the 8 ball. So it's like, there are 16-year-olds that have been racing longer than I've been racing. So that's how it goes. I literally started racing in 2015. It's been 5 years. And I only started doing track stuff like a year or two ago. So
it seems like kids like these days, well, very well-funded kids these days have go from the womb to a go-kart, it seems, I mean, segue kind of, but back in the day, F1, like, it wasn't surprising you didn't get to F1 until you're, like, in your 30s, almost, right?
Now we've got freaking 18 years. Like, who's the youngest? Was it 17 or 18?
17.
Yeah.
That was what happened years ago. So, yeah. It just shows you the way it is now.
Just freaking insane.
Yeah.
So, speaking of insane and F1, haha, segue. So, this happened a little while ago, but we're going to talk about it now because it's just insane. So, excuse me. Our lovely friend, Mr. Grosjean, had a crash in his Haas F1 car a few weeks back. And, it is just, it's like a freaking Michael Bay movie, dude. Like, if you have not seen this crash yet, if you just literally Google Grosjean, it will pull up this crash, because it is like, basically he collided with another car, and then ended up going through the guard barrier. The car split in half, and the entire thing literally exploded. Well, not literally. It burst into flames in a very expedient fashion.
It ripped the car in half.
Yeah.
It ripped, and the fuel cell sits between those parts where it ripped apart, so...
Yep. So the whole thing obviously burned to a crispy crisp. Luckily, Grosjean got out pretty quickly, so he just ended up with some burns on his hands, like along his wrists kind of area, which, unfortunately is the spot where it's like... Which I think actually in a lot of the like high-end FIA racing suits, you actually have the cuffs that like tape over it. Or not tape over it, but like Velcro over, that are supposed to kind of keep you safe there. But
yeah, but your gloves, the gloves that they use, they can't.
They can only do so much while still being good for driving.
I think the suits are rated for like 20 seconds of exposure.
Yeah.
And then the gloves can only do 10. And I think he was in the car for like 15 seconds. So that's why his hands got the way they... And I think the same thing with his foot. It got burnt, but not nearly as bad as his hand.
But yeah, so overall, though, like, he's completely healthy and fine, aside from the burns in a few spots, and I think he's already slated to go back to racing now. I think he's been given the green light.
No, he's missing the rest of the season.
Oh, no, I'm thinking of...
he missed the rest of the season because the season ended last weekend.
That's right. No, it was, I think, was it Hamilton who was finally cleared to be COVID-free? Is he the one who came back? Yeah. Yep. That's who I'm thinking of came back. But yeah, so but nonetheless, though, it's a spectacular crash, and I'm glad that he's okay. Because like, genuinely, if I hadn't have watched that, like if I had watched that live, I would have been like, man, I just watched an F1 driver die.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, it was bad.
Like, certainly, damn it!
Like, here, hold on. I'm gonna show it. I'm gonna turn off the audio because it's really loud, but you can see the fire here. Let me see if this.
David
Cool.
Croft's fucking loud.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so if you're watching this, I'm sorry for the podcast listeners, you're not going to be able to see this, but literally you just see him bopping around and boop, he flies off the side. And I think the scariest part, and this is another thing, is that this crash has been talked about in terms of just conveying how important it was that we added the halo. Because he went through the guardrail. Like,
yeah, he would have died.
Yeah, literally his head would have been, like, the helmet might have kept him from... The helmet would have kept his head from being smushed, but his head would have been removed from his body.
Or, it's just the impact. He hit that... I think he hit the wall. They hit the guardrail at 130 miles an hour. Anybody hitting their head at 130 miles an hour in a guardrail is probably not going to survive. So that was the scary part. But yeah, like people are like, oh, this is 10 years ago. I was like, if this was 4 years ago, the Halo came in 2018 or almost like that. So yeah, it was that was bad. Like I said, I woke up late and I turned it on. I was like, why is it red flag? That's not good. And
That's not good.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, and then I was like, oh. So I mean, thankfully I didn't watch it live, because I would have been the same thing. Like, he just died. Like,
and dude, I can only imagine. Like, dude, just imagine what it would be like to be his family watching that. Like, to just see a Michael Bay explosion. Like, it's terrifying. Like, everything about that is terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, thank God the sport's not like it was in the 60s, right?
Yeah.
But,
and it's just, again, also that kind of emphasis about the fact that, you know, as a whole, like, obviously race cars are kind of an extreme, but even then, like, cars are just, design has gotten so much better to make things so much safer.
Yeah.
So, either way, the hopes to the continued speedy recovery. I think he will be, for the most part, pretty okay. Like, especially, like, the bandages look, like, really big and bulky, so it's like, oh, it's super bad, but I think he just had, like, second-degree burns, which, not that those are a minor thing, but at the same time, it's like, he's not gonna have any nerve damage or any, like, crazy long-lasting effects. He'll just have some ugly skin.
Yeah, I mean, he's lucky in that regard, for sure. It's just, yeah. Oof.
Big oof. So, anywho, speaking of the opposite of a big oof, do you want to talk about this next one, now that I've talked everybody's brains off on the last three topics?
Certainly. So Porsche is revealed the new 911 GT3 Cup car.
It's hot.
It's hot.
It's hot.
So basically the same GT3 Cup car that's been poodling around the earth. The current excuse me.
It's got the current gen stuff. I will say the wide body's a little different. Like, they kind of opted for, like, the bolt-on fender flare from the front. Which
is kind of cool. I like it. It looks like,
And then, it's like, and then it uses the new swan neck design versus the old kind of GT3 style wing. And it looks good. I actually really like this livery, because I think my favorite thing about the livery is, like, it's not much of an Easter egg once you pay attention, but the fact that the livery is racetracks.
Yeah, but that's like the Porsche thing. That's not gonna look like.
Well, this one is, like, really subtle to me, though. Like, it's like,
oh yeah, the livery is cool. I'm just saying it's not gonna be what's on every car.
Yeah, and that's because there's tons of non-factory cars and tons of other things. By the way, it's just really cool to look at.
Porsche comes all over the world.
Yeah, which is also such a cool thing. Dude, that's always one of the things that just baffles my mind. It's just like, my world is grassroots motorsports, but it's always crazy to me to think about the fact that there are teams that, basically do the same thing, but with an extra zero tacked onto everything they do.
Yeah, or two.
Or 2 zeros. Yeah, it's like, so if my weekend... Yeah, no, you're right, or 2 zeros, because if my weekend costs... Like, if my worst weekend costs $1,000... There's definitely some guys where it's like, actually, I mean, I guess for a lot of them, like, a weekend would be like $100,000, like, between salary for 2 days. But then that's the other thing is that then the costs get really, really weird there. Like, then, you have salary that, is year round. You've got all the extra transportation costs, and then the worst thing is if anything happens to the car, like if you total out a car, then obviously you're not exactly gonna go run to the nearest pick and pull and get a clean 911 shell. You're ordering a 911 Cup shell from Porsche.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's a lot of money if you wreck that. That's a ton of money.
God, what was that race where it was like a bunch of, I think it wasn't IMSA, but it's like notorious because it was like there's like a bridge that's like only wide enough for like 2 cars, and then one car crashed, and then it ended up being like 80% of the field crashed in that. Yes, thank you. Yeah, and that was like the most expensive motorsports crash in history.
Like I think that was the most fucked up pile GT3 cars.
And the worst thing is just like it was genuinely like, if you didn't understand what it's like to be in a race car, it almost looked stupid. Like it's just car after car after car after car crashed, and any car that didn't crash got rear-ended into somebody else because they stopped. Like, it was just, oh my god, that was insane. And it's just every one of those teams had to fix their cars. Like, it's just like I don't even, so I wasn't into racing as much when it happened. I really need to go back and look through. I want to find out if there were any races that were immediately after, like that were like soon after that race, that ended up having to get canceled or rescheduled because like half the field was still sourcing parts.
Probably not.
Yeah, and that, to be fair, like these teams, they can rebuild a car in like a week. So
GT3 car. Like you could probably rebuild that car trackside. I'm sure they did.
Yeah, and that is actually really fair. Like, God, and that brings back into the money of it. It's like you basically have at least one of everything, and most of the time you have two of everything.
Yep. 2
bumpers, 2 crash structure things. Like, it's just insane when you think about it. Like, that's actually one thing someday I do want to build a drift car, and one of the first things I want to do is I'm going to tube frame a bunch of it so I can just make a bunch of replaceable bolt-on tube frames.
I mean, you could definitely do that.
Yeah, I mean, that right now my dream is like, because my master plan for the future is to become like an S2000 specialty shop, and so like I would love to do a drift build S2K that's like an S2000 that, because the other thing too is my shtick is I'm hoping I'm gonna give new life to S2000s that would otherwise be junk piles. Like my S2000 was a 200,000 mile car. And I turned it into a race car, and now it's my race car. It's a car that people wouldn't have wanted, and that, like I said, would have gotten junked when the motor went pop because it wasn't worth a lot. I would love to pick up one that has, like has some fucked up fenders and quarter panels, and then just chop those up. And then I want to make like not like a death cart like other people do, where it's like, just like a really basic crash structure, and then like, a bare frame. I actually want to try and like make the shape of an S2000 out of whatever bars I make, and then maybe do like some plastic sheeting as like body panels, so it's like a weird like low res S2000 kind of dealio. I'll have to really get down to the logistics of that, because the downside of the S2000 being a curvy car is it's harder to convey that stuff. But my hope is that I can do something like that, and then like I said, it'll all be replaceable and crashable, but it'll be kind of neat looking. So, but again, that just gets back to the fact that it's like when you build things, because that's the other thing too, is it's just like there's so many things that are different on a race car than a road car. Like, that's the other thing. I look forward to when I finally have a proper space and some proper time, because I want to tear down both of my cars and redo their wiring harnesses completely so that they're motorsport spec, which means that basically the wiring harness is connected to the engine, and you just have one wire. You unplug it, you do AN lines for everything, AN oil lines, AN coolant lines, etc., so that literally you can just undo everything. There's no, messing with hose clamps and all the other BS you do with road cars. And like, these are all parts that then require additional service and additional care, which is why they don't put them on road cars that often. But then doing all those things to the point where that you can pull an engine in 30 minutes because there's no BS to fuddle with. You're not trying to figure out where this vacuum line goes and all sorts of other stuff. Because that's the other thing too, is once you throw emissions out the door, and you start doing like better intake designs and other things that are too expensive to put through a cast mold but more affordable to do in the custom market, you end up with like dead simple cars where they're like literally one person could pull a motor in 30 minutes. If you have 2 people, you can do it in 15 minutes. And that's like my end goal for my cars, is for them to be that serviceable. Because again, when it comes to racing stuff, you want things to be serviceable. You don't want to spend an hour and a half trying to put things back together if you can help it.
Yeah. Yeah, you just want to make it just dead simple. That's the whole point.
Yep.
Right? Like,
and honestly, I'm the biggest like barrier to entry I've found for most people to reach that with their vehicles is just the fact that like a lot of people are good drivers, a lot of people are good mechanics, and a lot of people are good fabricators, but it's hard to find people who have all of those skills, and or it's hard to find groups of people with all of those skills individually that work together. So you regularly end up with people who are very mechanically inclined and good drivers, but they can only just do bolt-on stuff, and so because of that, they still run their cars as they ran from the factory, because then you can still get all your parts. And then there is also the upside that like when you don't have a ton of custom stuff, then you can go to AutoZone and get your replacements versus needing to stock them, because otherwise you have to wait a week. So it's like, pick your poison there.
Yeah. So it's just like I said, you guys just gotta make things as simple as you can.
Hashtag race car stuff.
Hashtag race car stuff.
So less race car stuff. So again, back to the Ken Block stuff, but less Ken Blocky. So Gymkhana 11 came out a couple of weeks back, and it's the first Gymkhana to directly not feature Ken Block. The reins that were actually, I don't know if this is going to be a permanent thing or if this was just like for funsies for this time around, but the keys were tossed to Travis Pastrana, who is a fellow hooligan silly boy doing silly car stuff. And then we actually talked about this car in the last podcast, but again, if you didn't see the last podcast, and for those of you who are listening, you'll never see any of this, but for those of you guys who are watching, this is the car, and if you haven't watched it, go watch it. It's really neat. It's a lot more Gymkhana stuff. But the funny thing is one of the things that a lot of people joked about / had fun with is the fact that Travis wore an open face helmet, and he is a very expressive human being. So he visibly has, like, oh shit face the entire time. It's hilarious.
I mean, I don't blame him.
I don't. It's terrifying, dude. Like, when he jumped a car over a canal doing, like, 120, 130 miles an hour. And then you have to recut. You can't. It's not like he just landed it and was like, done. He then had to slide it around and keep going. It's just like... It's terrifying. Like, it's all terrifying. And that's that's one thing that's just like, I think that, like, again, Ken Block is amazing, but he's never really conveyed just how sketchy everything he does is in the videos. Like, in the behind the scenes stuff, like, he talks about, he's like, I don't want to do that again. Don't make me do that again. But, in the videos, he's calm and cool and focused. He's got that stoic face.
Yeah. It's just he has no external emotions to him. It's just drive.
Yeah, just I am drive.
I am drive. I go fast. Yeah, it was fun to watch.
Yeah, it's a cool little video. So, all right, we're gonna go ahead and keep on churning through these because we're nice and cozy into our beyond the time limit. So, some quick little tidbits. So we're gonna lightning round this. A company called Zero Labs is making a modular BYOB electric car platform. So BYOB standing for Bring Your Own Body. And the idea is that they're designing these with the intention that you can plop like 60s to 80s muscle cars, cruiser car. Basically, their idea is to try to make it fit as many like general use chassis vehicles from that era as for those of you guys who don't know a lot about the mechanics behind cars. Back in the day, cars used to be body on frame like trucks, and a lot of those frames were just hoard about the entire lineup. So like if you design something for one car from those eras, then it's the same chassis, so you can actually take the body from other cars and put it on the same chassis. So essentially, this EV is a chassis, but then it also has the powertrain and everything. So, like I was talking to Hunter, it's like, so I guess you just like put a nice carpet in the front of your muscle car, so you have a second frunk, or you have a frunk instead of a V8.
Frunky boy.
Frunky boy. Because and like I said, this architecture does include the skate. Like it's a full skateboard with a battery. So like literally, there's nothing else that needs to go there. But I just thought it was really freaking cool because again, it's like we're starting to see that slow roll of ideas and people pushing towards electric vehicles / electric technology being the new resto mod, and I like it. I do. It's cool.
Yeah, it is. It's gonna be interesting. It'll be fun to watch.
All right, you're up next. You want to talk about this next thing?
So, yeah. Speaking of, that's right. Nicola's dead. The Badger project. It looks like.
Hey, yeah, no. Nikola in itself isn't dead. Just the Badger. Oh no! Oh no!
Are you sure?
So what it is that GM has signed a new deal with Nikola, where they are still going to provide some of their fuel cell technology to Nikola for them to maybe potentially produce their semi. But the Badger project has been officially canned as of the new deal.
Okay.
So
I misunderstood.
Yeah, so they went from Nikola becoming GM's homegirl to now he's like, okay, you're full of you're a hoe and you're full of lies and tricks. So go back to your apartment and I'll pay your phone bill for a little bit until you get on your feet. But I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Fuck out of here.
So either way, I'm glad that that's finally over-ish. But God, I wonder if somebody at GM's gonna get fired over this if they haven't already, because I haven't heard about anything. But it's just like,
they'll just get a bailout.
It's true. They'll just be like, yeah, we mess up, we get a bailout. It works out. Don't worry, Steve. You'll get it next time.
Fuck it. It's all right, man. We'll get a bailout. GM. That's how I envision Chevrolet. It's just like, fuck it.
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't run it past them. Like, I
like a car full of GM executives like running over a toddler in the middle of the day and having no emotion about it and just saying, fuck it.
Dude, I wish that I could laugh that off as satire, but that's the worst thing is there's like a drop of truth there.
Yeah, there's a drop of like, you might be right.
I mean, not gonna lie, with any high-level corporate exec at companies that function like this, I genuinely believe that they kill people by accident from time to time and just go, what a hassle.
Well, fuck.
This is what money's for, I guess.
Ain't that some bullshit?
Like, oh my god, now I'm salty about, like, because luckily when GM got its first bailout was before I cared or knew a lot about, like, finances or politics or anything, but I started to find out more and more about it, like, over this past year, because this year has been my transformation from I love everybody and I think the world is a fantastic place to I hate most people and the world is a pretty awful place. So that being said, through that transition, it's just like finding out more, but it's just like, Jesus Christ, I get that they're important to the economy in a sense, but like fuck them. Like, dude, seriously.
Like, what's like the last GM product where you're like, wow, this is good? Outside of like an LS engine and the Corvette, I can't think of anything.
I mean, the Camaro is actually good. I got to give it its due creds.
And I think the
ZR2, yeah, the ZR2 is actually really good at what it does. Everything else, though, yeah.
Well, the other 98%
they suck at economy cars. Okay, to be fair, their economy cars range from okay to other things, but it's like nothing else they do is astounding.
No.
That being said, a lot of companies don't do anything astounding, but still. Ford's on my shit list because they got rid of all their cool stuff except the Mustang and the Raptor. So they're still on my shit list for that. But they did give us the Bronco, so, it's like... yeah, I'm not going to go any further into that. So, by the way, Post Malone's selling his Senna.
Yeah, well, that was an investment, wasn't it?
It had to have been. It has 147 miles on it. And, like, it's just... I don't know. Maybe Post Malone's a bigger car guy than we know. I mean, that is a possibility, maybe, kind of, sort of. But the crazy thing is, he has a 1 of 3 Master of Monaco Senna. Which, again, you know, for you guys who are watching, I'm going to bring this up. And for all of you guys who are listening, if you want to look back, whenever we post these on our website, I do post the articles that we reference, so you can always go back and look at these if you want to. But this is actually, I really love this. Like, genuinely, if I had Senna money and I was given package options, I probably actually would have picked this package. Because I love, like, the crazy thing is that it actually has, like, when I say graphics, I don't just mean, like, symbols and basic colors, like, it looks like certain parts are airbrushed. Like, it has a Monaco flag on the rear wing, and not like just like, oh, it's got red and white. It's like it actually has the ripples and everything in it. It's got tons of little, you know, bicolored red and white accents. It's got this weird inner red trim on the rear deck lid. The inside carbon fiber tub is like it's like a weird burgundy hue, and it actually has like a ghost image of Senna's old Marlboro F1 car. Like, this whole thing is like done, like, it's a collector's edition in the truest sense. Like, no part of this car isn't like to a theme, which is actually honestly kind of rare in the specialty car sector, because so many cars, it's like, it's the special edition. What's special about it? It's got gold wheels and a green color scheme. But then it's like everything else about it is mostly the same. Whereas, like, this even has like burgundy, like all the carbon fiber is like burgundy treated, or like everything that's carbon fiber in a normal Senna is this burgundy color. It's got the Monaco flag in the headrest. Like, this is actually a beautiful car. And again, it's the, I don't think I said the full name all the way, but it's the McLaren Senna XP Master of Monaco.
Yeah.
So anyway, this one was owned by, if you have the money, this one was owned by Post Malone, and it's up for sale, and it's gorgeous. If you have the money, buy it. It's one of the most gorgeous Sennas I've ever seen.
It is, yeah. It's definitely rare, and it's definitely worth money, I would say.
Alright, so we're going to wrap things up with this last thing that's actually really close, near and dear to my heart. So, any of you guys who are familiar with high-level motorsport, especially, it's most common in wheel-to-wheel motorsport and a lot of track motorsport, but basically, at certain levels of competition, most motorsports require what's called a fire suppression system. If you aren't aware of what it is, general gist is that it's a series of hoses and nozzles hooked up to a fire extinguisher that can be triggered by the driver or by an automated system. Probably not wise to do the automated system thing, because then you you have glitches that make your life not fun. But it's triggered by the driver. So the idea is that you trigger it, and it's like a dead man switch. So once you, or not a dead man switch, I'm sorry. That's when it, like, if you die, you let go and it goes off. It's like a set and forget. That's a bad example too. You push a button and it starts spraying fire extinguisher stuff everywhere. And, like, usual installate, depending on the car and depending on the racing series, the number of nozzles varies. So, like, for instance, in a GLTC, which I say that one because I know that series because it's part of Grid Life and I do Grid Life stuff. You have to have 4 nozzles, and you're just required to have 4 nozzles. They don't necessarily dictate where they have to be, but you have to have 4 nozzles. And, oh no, they do dictate. It's like at least one of them has to be in the driver compartment. So the general thing that most people do is they do 2 pointed at their crotch, or 1 pointed at their crotch and then 1 pointed somewhere else in the cabin. And the reason why it's like, they pointed at their crotch. But it's because your upper body is usually at the least risk of a fire in... so to be fair, it depends on the setup of your vehicle. It really does. Most of us are racing front-engine cars. There's not a lot of mid-engine. We're starting to see some cars pop out, but most of us are not wheel-to-wheel racing mid-engine cars at the amateur level. So the reason why you do the crotch is because any fire that's going to come from the engine bay to you is coming through the firewall. And the most exposed spot, like, if any of you guys have never looked under at your pedal box in your car, look under there. It is the most unfinished part of your car. Like, There are wires under your like it is an open chasm. It looks like somebody didn't finish their homework once you look down under there. And on some cars, you can even touch the metal on your firewall. Like there's literally exposed metal down there. So that's where fire can come through. Basically, long story short. And so the idea is you point it, because you can't put, you really don't want to put a nozzle in your foot area anywhere, because then you could kick it and do all sorts of other stuff. So you point it at your crotch, because then it gets fire extinguisher material all over your lower side so that you're not on fire on your lower half. And the idea of these systems is it's not to like put out fires, it's more to give you time to exit the vehicle without there being fire on you or near the exit of your vehicle. And so that's what fire suppression is all about. Is again, it's like your car is on fire. It makes sure that you don't get burned on the way out. If you're really obsessive and you want to put like multiple fire extinguisher quantities in, then you may be able to save your car. But for the most part, again, you put like 2 right near the fuel rail under the hood so that it sprays it right at the place where fire is most likely to be coming out, and you put 2 on you so you can get out. And then other motorsports have more nozzles or less nozzles, etc. So the ARA, the American Rally Association, is the major governing body in the United States for stage rally. And for the longest time, it has not been, both when Rally America was still a thing and since AR has been a thing, they do not require fire suppression, despite the fact that, for all intents and purposes, honestly, these are some of the most thrashed and most put in danger cars in the world of motorsports. Because, like, and I mean, like, I'm not even saying, like, I mean, like, in other motorsports, like, they are definitely dangerous, but, like, in the Baja 1000, you're in the middle of the desert. If you roll over, you're rolling over in a sand dune. Whereas in rally, you fuck up, you go into a tree. There are always trees. There are never not trees. I will reiterate this again. There are always trees, and if there aren't trees, there are buildings. So because of that, like, you messing up genuinely regularly ends up in contact with a solid object. There's just not runoffs. That's the way the sport is run. It's very sketchy. And so arguably you could think that safety would be the biggest objective in this motorsport. And to be fair, the cages required for stage rally have to be FIA level or above. There's nothing underneath FIA that is acceptable in ARA, which means that's when you have cages that actually connect with the strut towers. And when you have a cage that connects with... So basically the idea is that the actual passenger compartment is completely rigid. Like, you are in an impenetrable cage. A properly built rally car can go off the side of a mountain at 100 miles an hour, and the passenger compartment will not collapse. The guy might be dead on the inside because he was tossed around like a rag doll, but the passenger compartment will remain intact. Whereas, in other motorsports, well, and then, in F1, then it's a carbon fiber monocoque, and that's, like, impervious to everything. But again, in terms of sports car racing, they are some of the most, like, well-built safety systems, and yet they've omitted fire suppression for years. So the reason why I say this affects me personally is I actually work a crew for a stage rally car, and I helped put it together. So we are going to be installing fire suppression in our car this year because the ARA, literally in their own email, they stated that they've basically not made it through a single event this year without a car catching on fire. Like, literally every event a car has caught fire. And the most recent one that you probably heard of is that at the 100 Acre Wood, Travis Pastrana caught on fire. And he didn't even crash. The car just literally caught on fire. So it's like no one is safe for it. It's not just like, a bunch of rednecks not building shit cars. It's like, no, this is a Vermont sports car built stage rally car that just burst into flames and couldn't finish because obviously it was a bonfire. So yeah, it was just kind of a neat little thing where it's like, hey, we finally got fire suppression, which, it's as expensive as it is. It's like $400 to $500 for like a decent system. It is something that honestly does belong in any car that is in more harrowing conditions than like time attack and track days and the lower level amateur stuff. Because I mean, this is the pro level stuff. That's what stage rally is. So it's definitely something I will consider when I finally get a proper cage in my car. Primarily because then I'll have a place to put fire suppression. Is it excessive? Yes, but at the end of the day, it's like it's excessive until you need it, and then it's the thing that saves your life. That's how it goes. It's why even at you'll see a lot of time attack guys, once their cars start doing like 120 miles per hour plus on the regular, a lot of them get fire suits and proper harnesses and a bunch of other things. Not because they're mandated, but because it's like, I don't want to die. And that's how it goes. Hunter, do you want to die? If you're saying anything, you muted yourself again.
God damn it.
Why are you doing that? Why do you mute yourself?
I didn't mean to. I think I bumped it on my keyboard because I have one set just in case.
I see. In reality, he was hiding a big-ass fart. He's just like...
I've been farting for the last, like, couple minutes.
Yeah, dude, you just been playing that sweet, sweet booty dubstep.
No, I was going to say, I agree. It's just, you gotta take care of yourself.
Gotta check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Let's get wrecked, that's for sure.
So anyhow, that's the end of all of our talking stuff. Hunter, what do we want to call this episode now? We talked about, do you want to just say we're race car drivers now?
No.
No.
I hate people that are like that.
But we're race car drivers now.
Obama can't gymkhana.
We didn't even talk about Obama.
Yeah, well, it came to my mind. No.
Oh, by the way, you know what I found out? So you know how the Joe Rogan Experience episode is like our most watched one? So, yeah. Not gonna lie, I didn't know that was the actual name of his show.
Oh, really? Did you not? Yeah, that's his name of his...
I knew it was like the Joe Rogan Podcast, but I did not know it was literally called the Joe Rogan Experience.
We should just like say it's like interview with Law, and then like we never mention it or talk about it. Like interview with I don't know, whatever, somebody famous, and we never even mention their name in the entire episode.
What, like actually interview them but not say who they are?
No. Don't even interview them. Just don't even mention them in the episode.
Oh, just put everyone like interview with, and then let people just
make that a title.
When does he come in? Oh, skipping around. Did I miss it? Was it in the middle? We'd even drop in like little nuggets where we'll be like, all right, so after this commercial break, we're gonna be talking to whoever, and they'll be like, oh yeah, and then they'll skip ahead and be like, wait, did I miss it? Where is it? That would be the cruelest way of gaming SEO ever. But anyway, that explains it 100% to me now, because I thought that we just made up the experience part. Legitimately thought that.
Yeah. No, that's the name of his podcast. I did that. That's why I said it. I was like, just to be stupid.
Yep. Well, I dig it. It got attention and
naming him Joe Rogan Experience, right?
What'd you say?
Just keep naming him the Joe.
Just
Rogan.
name all of them the Joe Rogan Experience.
Yeah, and then number them like he does.
Does he not name them? Are they literally just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
They're numbered, and then the guest names on the title. But
like, okay. At least the guest names on the title.
Yeah. So like, I think we should do that until we at least like get mentioned by them or somebody contacts us.
But see, the hard thing about that is it all depends on how their lawyers handle the cease and desist, because there's the cease and desist in that please don't do this further, and there's the cease and desist of take down all of your stuff that references us in any way. Which, to be fair though, we don't since we don't actually do like any we mention his name satirically, which is completely in our legal use. So the worst they could probably do is tell us to rename them.
Yep.
So we could do that. We could. It's a slippery slope, though. It's a slippery slope.
Yep, it is. But it's worth trying.
Man, now this is really tempting. This is really freaking tempting.
No, I'm joking. Don't do that at all. It's a horrible idea.
It's so tempting, though. I'm thinking about it. Talk me out of it.
Don't do it. And there we go. That's it.
You make a compelling argument.
Yeah.
Anywho, I'll figure out what to call this one. We'll call it BYOB. We'll go with that. We talked about a BYOB.
Right?
Or do we want to make it bring your own race car?
Bring your own race car.
There we go. Boom. Bring your own race car. All right. So that being said,
I'm just saying.
What?
No, I'm just kidding. In the episode 5.
Anyway, so yeah, long story short is, as always, offer still stands. First person to email me, juan@thecolumnshifters.com. This week, you're just gonna say send Joe Rogan as the message, and you'll get a $20 gift certificate to an eating place of your choice. So hit me up. We'll get that rolling. One of these days, someone will cash in. If you're a regular listener in any way, shape, or form, do it. I mean, you gotta. Yeah, what do you have to lose? You get a gift card. It's even got to have my name and my contact info on it. So it's like, I mean, I can't really think of anything malicious you can do with a gift card. It's like, here's a code. It's $20. Put it in at the food place. Like, there's literally nothing to lose. It's free food. Who doesn't love free food? Anywho, we're gonna go buy. Yeah, we're gonna go buy. Bye.
All right. Bye.